A new Social Security bill has just been introduced, and for millions of beneficiaries, this could mean keeping more of the money they already fought for and waited years to receive. This update is directly tied to changes that began last year, and while not everyone will benefit, for the people who do qualify, the financial impact could be meaningful. This is not just another proposal being talked about quietly. This is a formal piece of legislation that is now in motion, and it targets a very specific group of seniors who recently saw their benefits increase after decades of being underpaid. Before we go any further, take 1 second to tap the like button. It helps this update reach other seniors who may be affected by this bill. And when you come back, I'm going to explain exactly who this applies to, what this new bill is trying to change, and when any of this could realistically start to matter for your money. This update is for Social Security beneficiaries who were impacted by last year's changes to benefit calculations, especially those who received retroactive lump sum payments and higher monthly checks starting in 2025. Now let me share a real situation that shows why this update matters so much. A 71-year-old man named Frank from Scranton, Pennsylvania, reached out after finally seeing his Social Security benefits corrected last year. Frank spent most of his working life in public service and later qualified for Social Security. But for years, his benefit amount was reduced because of rules that penalize certain types of workers. When those rules were repealed, Frank received a lump sum payment that helped him pay off overdue medical bills and catch up on expenses he had been postponing for years. For the first time in a long time, he felt like the system had finally recognized the work he had done. But shortly after receiving that lump sum, Frank was surprised to learn that a portion of that money could be subject to federal taxes. He told me that it felt like finally being handed something he had earned, only to have part of it taken away before he could even use it to stabilize his situation. Frank said the hardest part was not the taxes themselves, but the feeling that even when something positive happens, there is always another layer of uncertainty attached to it. If you are watching from Pennsylvania like Frank, or from any other state where people are seeing these restored benefits for the first time, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Whether you are directly affected or simply following these changes closely, sharing your state helps me bring you more relevant updates. Here is what is actually happening behind this new bill. Last year, in early January of 2025, a major law known as the Social Security Fairness Act was signed into law. That law repealed two long-standing provisions that had reduced benefits for certain workers. Those provisions were the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. Together, those rules had affected approximately 3.1 million Social Security beneficiaries across the country. When they were repealed, many of those beneficiaries received retroactive lump sum payments, averaging about $6,710, along with significantly higher monthly benefit checks going forward, often by hundreds of dollars per month for the rest of their lives. For many seniors, the first time in decades that their Social Security benefits finally reflected their full work history. But when those lump sum payments arrived, another issue immediately surfaced. Federal taxes still applied to those restored benefits. That meant that a portion of the money many seniors had waited years to receive could be reduced by taxation, sometimes unexpectedly, especially for people who were not prepared for the tax impact of receiving a large payment all at once. The new bill that has just been introduced is called the No Tax on Restored Benefits Act. The purpose of this bill is very specific. It does not eliminate federal taxes on Social Security benefits for everyone. It does not remove Social Security taxation across the board. Instead, it targets only the restored benefits that resulted from the repeal of the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. In simple terms, this bill would prevent federal taxes from being applied to the portion of benefits that were restored as a result of last year's changes. This means that for the roughly 3.1 million beneficiaries who received those lump sum payments, and higher monthly benefits after the Social Security Fairness Act. The restored portion of their benefits would no longer be subject to federal taxation if this bill becomes law. It would not change how Social Security is taxed for people who were not affected by those repealed provisions. This is a targeted proposal, not a universal change to Social Security taxation. It is important to be very clear about that because there has been a lot of confusion online. Some headlines suggest that Social Security taxes are being eliminated entirely. That is not true. Social Security benefits are still taxable under current law, and there has been no repeal of Social Security taxation for the general population. What did happen previously was the introduction of a temporary deduction for seniors age 65 and older, allowing a deduction of $6,000 for individuals and $12,000 for couples for a limited period of time to reduce tax liability. That was a compromise measure, not a permanent repeal of Social Security taxes. This new bill is different. It focuses only on the restored benefits tied to the repeal of the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset. For those affected, this could mean that both the retroactive lump sum they received and the higher monthly payments going forward would not be reduced by federal taxes on the restored portion of their benefits. Now let us talk about timing, because that is what most people are anxious about. This bill has been formally introduced, and it has bipartisan support, which matters. Bipartisan legislation has a higher chance of moving forward than proposals that come from only one side. That said, introduction does not mean immediate change. Bills must go through committee review, debate, possible amendments, and votes before anything becomes law. There is no guaranteed start date for when changes would take effect if this bill passes. However, the fact that it is already being discussed formally signals that Social Security policy is back on the legislative agenda, which has not happened frequently in recent months. This matters even if you are not personally affected by the restored benefits. When lawmakers begin engaging seriously with Social Security legislation, it creates momentum. That momentum can lead to additional proposals, discussions, and potential reforms that may impact broader groups of beneficiaries in the future. When one bill opens the door, others often follow. There has not been a steady stream of formal Social Security legislation in recent months. While individual lawmakers occasionally float ideas or informal proposals, bipartisan bills related to Social Security do not appear often. The last widely discussed proposal before this focused on emergency inflation relief, which was reintroduced in late October of last year, and would have proposed increasing benefits by $200 per month. That proposal has not moved forward yet, but it shows that lawmakers are still exploring ways to address the financial pressures seniors face. Even though this new bill will not help everyone, it is still meaningful for the group it targets. For those who waited years to receive fair benefits and then saw a portion of those restored benefits potentially reduced by taxes, this proposal could offer relief and a sense that their situation is being acknowledged at the policy level. If you are among the group of beneficiaries who received a lump sum payment and higher monthly benefits last year, this is something you should pay attention to. While nothing changes immediately, being aware of this bill allows you to plan, ask informed questions, and avoid being caught off guard by future updates. Before we wrap up, take a moment to subscribe so you do not miss future updates on how this bill progresses and what it could mean for your benefits. These changes do not happen overnight, but when they do move, the details matter. In summary, a new Social Security bill has been introduced that would prevent federal taxes from being applied to restored benefits for the approximately 3.1 million beneficiaries impacted by last year's repeal of the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset. This would not eliminate Social Security taxes for everyone, but it could allow affected seniors to keep more of the money they finally began receiving in 2025. The bill is bipartisan and formal, which gives it momentum, but changes will take time to unfold. Staying informed is the best way to protect your benefits and understand how these policy shifts may affect your financial future.